Howdy folks, it's Meandering Mike in the Man Cave of Madness. We are looking at Imperium. Now, this is a Hex Counter Memory that is based more on the circumstances of the disposal of the game and not the actual gameplay. Now, this particular edition here, you might not be able to tell from this angle and looking at the box. This is not the GDW version that came out in 1979. This is the Conflict Games version that came out in 1977. The box is a little thicker here. It's deeper. And the form factor this way is smaller. The rectangle of the GDW box, their GDW flat box, is a bigger rectangle and less deep. Now, this has mounted maps. It's one of the reasons it's thicker. But this is not the version that I owned back in 1979. I got this game when I was a junior in high school. And as I said, the Hex Counter Memories about the disposal game. It's not that I didn't like it. This is the first war game that I ever got rid of. Okay. But it's not because I didn't like it. I did like the game. I only played this game twice, but I went on to use some of the concepts to design my own game, which I called Intragalactic. Now, not intergalactic, which means between the galaxies, but intragalactic, galactic, which was within the galaxy. And I created my own version of this game, adding additional unit types and stuff, and I went on to use part of that and another game, Starfire, which I believe came out in 1980, and I used parts of the two games to create a game that I called later Galaxy Spawn that became my second play-by-mail game that I created and ran back in the 80s. But let's get to the story of why this is the first war game that I got rid of. Now I'm going to go ahead and open this up. All right, this particular copy that I have here, most of the counters are unpunched in strips. Some of you may have seen that. People sometimes will punch them out of the sprues in long strips, not actually punch out individual counters. And store them away like that. It's obviously much better to have it unpunched in the sprues. And usually when people punch them, they punch them all the way. But sometimes you'll find games like this. So I just recently bought this particular copy. I know somewhere I have a GDW copy and including the second edition GDW copy and a third edition Avalanche Press copy. But the State of the Man Cave organization, some things, I just can't find them. Like, I thought they were in a tote. I went through all my totes and man, not there. So somewhere in a box, and yes, the GDW flats will fit in bankers boxes. And I found a couple of GDW banker boxes with flats in them, but not the science fiction game. So anyway, I went out and bought this copy at an amazingly reasonable price for the first edition, first printing from Conflict Games. But these counters are beautiful. I love these counters. These are control counters. You've got ground troops. There's two different kinds. There's like the veteran, more elite guys and the normal dudes. You've got various kind of starships, cruisers and battleships and things like that. They've got things called monitors, which are like, orbital only. They don't travel between the stars and things like that. But these are very nice counters, and these are of the kind that are going to have corner nibs. You can see if you look close here, that if you punch these, some of these have quite a bit of connective tissue, so to speak. Here, let me see if I can find one that has a nib already formed. See that there, the lower corner of that and the upper corner. And I had never seen a game with clipped counters before, but somehow when I was a junior in high school, I heard about somewhere, maybe reading in a magazine, clipping the counters, and I decided to clip the counters of my copy. And I don't even know if I knew the term clipping counters more as trimming the corners, okay? So one option would have been to use scissors. Now, my mother sort of trained us not to use her good scissors. You may hear that voice in the back of your mind there. Don't use my good scissors. You're going to ruin them. And, we had, as kids and teenagers, all sorts of scissors around the house, but there were those like rounded tip scissors, safety scissors and things like that. And those were never very sharp. So it never occurred to me to really try to use scissors. Didn't occur to me to use like an X-Acto knife. My dad had X-Acto knives, but I think that would have been just as bad. I ended up using, yes, nail clippers. And I went and clipped all my counters, got rid of these nibs, played my game, played it once, really enjoyed it. This is the kind of game where you want to play it more than once. You have the Empire and the Terrans and the Imperium, the Empire. And you play a campaign after game. You fight a war. The war ends. One side or the other advances, or back and forth. And usually the Terrans are hard pressed at the beginning, but they're gaining tech faster. The Imperium is big, but they're a little more stagnant in terms of growth. And there's supposed to be an ebb and flow as you play a series of these battles. And I ever played 2. And I'm not sure what struck me, but somewhere in the second playing of this game, I became very self-aware of how bad of a job I did of clipping the counters. Okay? I don't know if it was when I was starting to line them all up and trying to make decisions on, what units to, because I think the first scenario had a standard setup, and then after that you have certain decisions, and there's like a maintenance period you have to calculate. Well, how long is the warp to the next one? And there's a maintenance cost for the more units that you built and all this stuff. And so basically I was like looking at all the things, trying to decide, and I just noticed how unevenly I clipped all these counters. They were not nice, neat corner trimmings. They were not what you'd call stop sign counters. If you've heard that term, one of the negative pejorative terms about counter clipping is if you cut off rather deeply every corner, instead of a square, they become like stop signs. They become octagons. And it wasn't that bad, except for some of the corners I cut off rather deeply, and it wasn't consistent. Some were just barely trimming off the corners. Some were kind of deep. The angle, it certainly was not, this 45 degree angle here at the corners, 45, 45, 90 makes a right triangle at the corner. Oh, Lord, it would, been lucky happenstance if some of them were actually 45 degree angles on both sides. Mine were very inconsistent. And I became self-aware of that, self-conscious of that, oh my God, these look terrible. And after playing the game the second time, I had this sense of sort of shame or embarrassment that, oh my God, I had done such a poor job on these, that I didn't want anyone else to see it, that I had done such a bad job. I was, kind of shy, an introverted kid. I wasn't like super, super shy, but, around the right people, I was open and talkative and gregarious, other nerds, other gamers, chess club people, war game people. But in general, I was a little on the shy side, and I was very insecure and self-conscious about certain things. And at that point, I had decided that I didn't want anyone to know that I had done such a piss poor job of trimming the counters, as I was calling it, trimming off the corners. So I threw the game away. I mean, literally, I threw it away. So this is the first game I ever got rid of, not because I didn't like it. I liked the game, but because of my disposition of the relationship I had with what I had done and how I felt about it. And I felt it was better for me just to get rid of the game than to have anyone see what a poor job that I did. So that is my Hex Encounter memory for Imperium. Again, the version I had was the GDW version from 1979 with the paper map. The counters, I assume, are identical. So as far as my memory goes, they were identical to this. Yeah, it was like, okay, I'm actually getting rid of the game. I have gotten rid of very few war games since I've collected. Since I've started collecting, I've only got things that I've gotten duplicates and stuff. But I did get rid of 90%, 95% of my collection after I got married, and I just got rid of them en masse. But this was the first and really only game that I threw away, certainly out of embarrassment. That's the only game I ever got rid of out of embarrassment. Yeah, so this was a disposition under weird circumstances. But again, I really enjoyed the game, loved the game, and the fact that I went and created another game system based on this, my Intragalactic, and went on to integrate that. And I do not have my copy of Intergalactic. It was something that I created using just blank hex maps, and I used the SPI blank counter sheets. I, hand wrote the stats on there, and I did a bunch. I mean, I've mentioned the story of me creating a game that I gave to a friend for like a birthday present, and my handwriting was so abysmally bad, he threw it away. And that, like, I think he was embarrassed to have it because it was such a scrawl, an illegible scrawl, and he just tossed it. So I don't know if I sort of internalized that reaction to what he did into my own, thing what I did with this game in terms of clipping the counters or not. But I actually remember that the counters were legible. I took my time. I still don't have great handwriting. If I'm writing at speed, I write real fast, and I can't even read my own writing when I come back, weeks or months later. I do have fond memories of this game and what I developed from it, and went on to create, a play-by-mail game that I called Galaxy Spawn. I'm just showing you stuff here so you're not looking at the same thing constantly. I'm going to point at things at random. Oh, here's the map. But sometime I'll do a memory segment more based on not Hex Encounter memory, but just my design journey memories, and talk about my play-by-mail games that I created. And those lasted for a few years. I had friends playing them, only a few outside non-friends. There was 3-4 people around the country, and then everyone else was in state playing local friends and stuff. But yeah, we'll talk about that. So this has been another Meandering Mike Hex Encounter memory. We've kept this one relatively short. And so let me ask you, is there any games that you got rid of, say, early in your career? Why? Obviously some people will just like, I've played it, I'm selling it, or I didn't like it, I'm selling it, or I'm trading it. But is there any weird reason that you got rid of it that, like, this game, maybe it's the topic. You don't want someone to know that, oh, you know, like they call it guilty pleasures or something, that sometimes you can't bear people know that I like this thing, but I don't want anyone to know that I did, so I'm getting rid of it or whatnot. In my case, it was just an embarrassment in what I did to the contents. Yeah, so, you know, feel free to comment on anything like that if you've had some strange experiences, or what, you know, getting rid of games for some various or strange reasons. So I'm going to call it quits here. Meandering Mike, Man Cave of Madness, my first Hex Encounter memory for 2025. And remember, this is the classic example. Take care of your games. Don't turn your counters, if you're going to clip them, into hexagons or strange irregular polygons where your angle is all crazy at each corner. Take care of those games. They'll take care of you. And yeah, do what you're going to do in a way that you're not going to embarrass yourself. Oh my God, I did that. I can't believe it. So take care of y'all. Ciao.